Hello, grade 5. Happy Wednesday. Thank you for joining me for another exciting math lesson. We're still working on fractions. So today we're going to be doing comparing and ordering fractions, which we've started to get into a little bit in the last two lessons that we've had. But we're going to see a couple different things here. Mainly, we are going to start comparing some fractions that have different denominators, so where the bottom number is different. And we'll just get into the basics of that and just kind of I just want to show you how we are going to be doing that. And we'll be also comparing some with the same denominators as well. So let's take a look at this first slide here, where it's asking us to compare these fractions. Now, if you notice, when you look at these, you've got two circles divided into equal parts. Any fraction, we're talking about parts of a whole. So first thing, to figure out what our denominator is going to be, we're going to count how many sections it's been divided into altogether. So we've got 1, 2, 3, 4. So that's going to be our denominator. If you notice, too, both circles are divided into 4 parts. So our denominator is going to be 4. To find out what our top number or our numerator is going to be, we can count how many are shaded. So here we've got 1, so 1/4, and here we've got 3, 3/4. Now, if we want to compare these, if you look at the picture, it's pretty easy. Which one has more shaded? This one right here. Also, I just want to point out here too that you have 3 is greater than 1. So that also tells you that you are having a bigger fraction. So 1/4 is less than 3/4. So that is how that is going to look. That's how it's going to be when you have the same denominator. You're just looking for a bigger number on top. So it's pretty easy if you remember that. Let's just take a look here at the next slide. Now, this is also something that we've taken a look at before when we have our fraction strips. Also, this might be a good time if you have your fraction strips. You can have those out because that might help you with the exercises you'll be doing today on your sheet. So, asks us here, which strip has a greater amount shaded? You notice our denominator is the same, so it's 6 because it's divided into 6 equal parts. Here we've got 3 shaded, so we've got 3/6. Here we've got 5/6. And again, when you visually see it, it's easy to see which has more shaded, which is closer to a whole, 5/6. So we're going to say 5/6 is greater than 3/6. So again, pretty easy when you're talking about the denominators being the same. So when the bottom number is the same, all you have to do is see which number is bigger up top, regardless of the size of the number. So hopefully that should be pretty easy for everyone. Well, let's just go through a couple here. Well, I'm going to cover up that bonus. We'll do these first 3 first and then get to that. So it wants us to write either less than or greater than. So we're not having fractions that are equal. We're having different fractions. If you notice, on A, B, and C, our denominators are the same in each set. So for A, we've got 2/15 and 4/15. Since those denominators are the same, we just need to look at the numerator. 4 is greater than 2. Another way, since we're reading it like we would, 2 is less than 4, so 2/15 is less than 4/15. For example B, we've got 3/9 and 2/9. Same denominator, we just need to look up top. 3 is greater than 2, so 3/9 is greater than 2/9. And finally here, notice again, same denominators, so we've got tenths. I look at my numerator, 6 and 9. I see that 6 is less than 9, so therefore 6/10 is going to be less than 9/10. And if I just look at this bonus question right here, big numbers, right? But don't be intimidated by the fact that it's a big number, because if you notice, that big number, 7,159, is the same denominator on both. So again, we just look up top. 37 is greater than 27. Therefore, 37 7,159 is greater than 27 7,159. So even if you've got a gigantic denominator, if they're the same, you can compare the fractions just by looking at what the numerator is. So it's, as long as that denominator is the same, you're just seeing which number up top, the numerator, is bigger. All right, next slide. Now here, we're being asked to figure out a number that we can put here to make this statement correct. So we've got 4/9 is greater than something over 9, some amount of 9s. So if you remember the rule, same denominator, then that means this 4 is going to have to be greater than whatever we put here. And we can put really any number then that's less than 4. So we could say 4/9 is greater than 3/9. We could also write a 2. We could also write a 1. Any of those would be correct. You could write a 0 even if you wanted to, but I'd just keep it with 3, 2, or 1. So we'll keep the 3 there. And then the same thing here. Now though, if you notice, we've got a less than sign. So we got 7/10 is less than something over 10, some amount of tenths. So again, if we remember our rule, that we just need to compare the numerators, so we need to make sure that we have a bigger number than 7 here. So I will just go with 9. So 7/10 is less than 9/10. You could also say 7/10 is less than 8/10. You could say 7/10 is less than 10/10, which is also equal to 1. So any of those will work. So that's just when you're being asked to fill in a blank here. That's what you're looking for. Compare those numerators. That's all you need to do. Okay. Let's move on to this next question, which asks us to order the fractions from least to greatest. Gives us a little hint here. What does the denominator 6 mean? I'm sure that everyone watching probably knows that means we're dividing something into 6 equal parts. We're dividing it into sixths. So therefore, if you're looking for the smallest one first, you're going to look at the numerators and see which one is smallest. So I look here, I see a 1. That's going to be my smallest. So we're going to start with 1/6. Then I just go in order. What's the next number that's greater than 1? 2. 2/6. Then I've got 4/6 next. And finally, 6/6. So if we wanted to read this statement all the way across from left to right, we'd say 1/6 is less than 2/6, is less than 4/6, is less than 6/6. So again, just a reminder, I know I keep saying it, but I just want you to remember this. If you've got the same denominator, you just have to worry about comparing the numerators in order to compare that fraction. So that, I think we've kind of dealt with before, so hopefully everyone's kind of got a pretty good handle on how that goes. And let's take a look at the next thing. And this is where we're starting to get into something a little bit different. So it's asking us to write the fractions beside the strips using the standard fraction notation, which is with a numerator and a denominator. We have a hint down here. And it asks, are the strips the same length? I look at that. Yep, they're the same length. Do they have the same number of parts? Now that's where we have differences. Because here we've got 4, we've got 3 in the middle, and we've got 2. And then are the parts the same size? And again, they're not. And you can see this pretty easily when you look at the shaded parts, because you can see that when we shade one of the parts, that some are bigger than others. And this is the key here. So let's write the fractions. So again, I'll figure out my denominator first. I'll see how many parts we've divided that into. 1, 2, 3, 4. So I know it's going to be something over 4. To write that fraction, I count how many are shaded. 1. 1/4. In the middle here, we've got 3 parts. So that's going to be our denominator. Again, 1 part is shaded, so 1/3. And here we've got 2 parts, so 2 will be our denominator. Again, 1 shaded, so 1/2. Now this is where we're getting into comparing fractions without the same denominator. Because if you notice, 4, 3, and 2, different denominators. So if we're comparing these, we can't look at the numerator. And all these that we're going to be doing today actually have, the numerators are going to be the same. And this is where it can sometimes get a little bit tricky, because now what we're looking at is that whichever number has a smaller denominator is going to be the bigger fraction. And if you look at this visually, you can see that. Because 1/2 goes all the way up to here. So that's the biggest one, 1/2. Next would be 1/3. And then finally would be 1/4 to end that. So when you are comparing fractions that have different denominators, and as long as the numerator is the same, whichever fraction has a smaller denominator is going to be a bigger fraction. And that gets into this next slide here, where it says the more parts something is divided into, the smaller each part is. So that means that I like to think of this like thinking of a pizza. So if someone said to you, I'll give you half a pizza, or I'll give you 1/8 of a pizza. And just think about that in your head. Uh-oh, technical difficulties. But just give me 1 second and we'll get that right. There we go. Right back up. This, see, just like being in class, because sometimes this is what happens when we are in class. So let's go back to full screen there. Uh-oh. Just give me 1 second. Okay. There, I think we've got that back. Sorry about that. But again, sometimes this happens, so we're just going to roll with it. So as I was saying with the example of the pizza, if you were really hungry and someone said, I'll give you half of a pizza, or I'll give you 1/8 of a pizza. So if you divided the pizza into 2 parts, that 1/2, that 1 part, is going to be a lot bigger than if you divided it into 8 parts and only got 1 piece. So that's the same principle here. So if you can think about that when you are comparing fractions with different denominators, hopefully that'll help you to visualize that. Also, if you have your fraction strips, you can take a look and then compare them and line them up so that might make it a little bit easier. So what we are looking for here now, again, different than what we were doing when we had the same denominators, we're actually looking for the smaller number on the bottom, the smaller denominator. That's going to let us know that we have a bigger fraction. So if I look at 1/4 and 1/9, 1/4 is going to be greater than 1/9. Now here I've got 3/8 and 3/5. Notice with all of these in this section and on your work for today, it's all going to be the numerators having the same value. So I've got 3/8 and 3/5. Since the 8 is bigger that means I'm dividing it into smaller pieces. 3/8 is going to be less than 3/5. I know that might be a little bit confusing, but hopefully when you think about it, if you look at your fraction strips, even if you draw a picture of it, that will help you. And if you think of that example of the pizza, hopefully that will help you as well. Okay, let's look at the next one where we have 4 different exercises to do. And again, just writing less than or greater than. Notice all of these have different denominators, but our numerators are the same. So I've got 2/8 and 2/3. So since I've divided that into 8 parts, that means each part is going to be smaller. So 2/8 is going to be less than 2/3. 1/2 or 1/10. Smaller number on the bottom, smaller number for our denominator, means we are dividing into less parts. Each part's going to be bigger, so 1/2 is greater than 1/10. 4/5 or 4/4. Bigger number, 4/5 is less than 4/4. And finally, 1/10 compared to 1/100th. 1/10 is going to be greater than 1/100th. So numerators are the same. When the denominators are different, the smaller denominator is going to be the bigger fraction, the bigger part of a whole. All right, we only have a couple more slides left to go. This is a fairly quick lesson today. Oh, I forgot to cover up that bonus. So let's look at this. Now we are looking for a number in the blank that will make the relationship correct. These two are going to be really easy because we've got 1/10 is greater than something over 12. And just as in with the previous examples, if we keep the numerator the same, it's going to make the relationship correct. So 1/10 is going to be less than 1/12. So just make sure if you've got different denominators on your exercises today and it's asking you, make sure you just keep that numerator the same. So 3/7 is going to be less than 3/5. Now C is a little bit different because now we've got the numerators already filled in. So we want to say 5/9 is greater than 5 over something. Now this, again, might get a little bit tricky, a little bit confusing, and that's okay. But so 5/9, I want a denominator, since this is divided into 9ths, I want a denominator that is going to be bigger than 9 to make that statement correct. Because we're then dividing it into more parts than 9, we're having each part a smaller size. So basically, you could write any number for this over 9. I'm just going to pick 13. So 5/9 is greater than 5/13. But you could say 5/9 is greater than 5/10, 11ths, 12ths, 13ths, 14ths. Whatever you want, as long as that number is greater than 9, it's going to make that statement correct. Now, of course, with these bonuses, as you're probably aware, it's going to be a big number. So we've got 172 over 983 is less than 172 over blank. Notice, numerators are the same. We've got 983 here, but we're going to need to find a different denominator. Since it's less than, that means we are going to have a number here that is smaller than 983. So we could say 172 over 904. And that would make that relationship correct. We could go 172 over 800, 172 over 173. Any number less than 983 will work to make that statement correct. So Just remember with these different denominators, as long as the numerators are the same, we're looking for the smaller number is going to show us that we have a bigger fraction. And I think I just have one more slide left for you today. And this is just the same thing we've been doing where we're ordering fractions. Now we're ordering them with different denominators. Notice the numerators are the same. I'm going to just also show you visually so you can see that and get a better idea of how this works, how it looks. So look at the first one. We can count in this fraction strip. We've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So we have 10 parts. So I look for my denominator. That's a 10. There it is, 1/10. So I'll just write that here. And I'll just color that one in to show you that one section. Next, I got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So I look for my fifths, 1/5. Now I'll color that in to give you an idea of what that looks like. Moving right to the next one, 1, 2, 3, 4. So I'm looking for fourths. I see all the way down at the end, 1/4. I write that in there. Color in that box. I've got my 1/4. Now I've got thirds. There's 1/3 right there. I'll write that. Color that in. And then finally, 2 parts, so a half. There's 1/2, 1/2. Color that one in as well. And as you can see, the bigger the denominator, the smaller the piece that it's been divided into. So if we want to, we can put in our symbols here. So we can say 1/10 is less than 1/5, is less than 1/4, is less than 1/3, is less than 1/2. So that's all for today's lesson. Hopefully that will help you to finish your worksheet today. Hopefully that last part's not too confusing. If you have questions, you can get someone at home to email me or get my email address from our class page and send me an email and I can help you go over it. Next week, hopefully we'll be getting some Zoom conferences together where we can go over some of these math things if anyone has any questions. Or you can have your parent at home give me a call. We can talk about it over the phone if you need to. But hopefully I think that you should be able to understand that. And so that's all I've got for today. I hope that everyone has a great day. I hope you get outside, get some exercise, get some quality time with your family. So until I see you again, have a wonderful rest of your day.